Well, good day to you, Team Healthy. Trying to get my camera situated right here. Got my microphone right there. So, well, hopefully we're in good shape. Hey, it's Wednesday. I'm glad to be here with you with our live feed. I know a lot of you are watching on tape delayed. I get a lot of feedback on that. Sometimes it's actually okay. Some of the old timers, y'all like it when I say tape delayed. You know what I mean. So we've got a lot of questions here today, and I so appreciate the fact that you will have confidence in me in terms of sending in the questions to see what we can come up with. If you're new to this format, I know some of you're the old timers that just keep coming around, and I love it. That's we call ourselves Team Healthy, and we do it for a reason because that's where we're headed. But if you're new, know that if you'll put your questions in the comment section below the video here, then I will pick up on it. I do the copy and paste thing. Even an old dinosaur like me knows how to do that. And then next week, I'll pick up on questions that have come in, and that's how we do it here. So I love this format because it allows me to get to know you in a more personal kind of way and address things maybe that I wouldn't address necessarily in a video, but we can kind of go into a bit of a nuance here. Now, you notice that recently I put out a video that was entitled "Why Are Narcissists So Dense?" and that word "dense" seemed to resonate with a lot of you, and so I picked up a lot of questions that go along with that question in mind or that notion in mind. There's a question, a burning question that so many individuals have, and that is this person who's strongly controlling and overbearing, this person who shows no empathy, they seem to manipulate and tell lies very easily. Are they just so habituated? Are they so dense in what they're doing that they don't even realize what's going on? Or am I being played? And you won't be surprised to hear me say, oh, it's usually a combination of both. When it comes down to it, narcissists as a general rule are going to know that there's certain things that are over the line. For example, if they curse at you and scream and shout ugly insults and things like that, if you pin them down, they can probably say, yeah, I probably shouldn't do something like that. But then you'll know the next word that they'll use is but, and then they go on and they blame you or they blame circumstances and all like that. So they know right from wrong as a general rule, but they're so habituated in what they do that it's just first nature to them. So we're going to get into that now. Before we go into our questions, I do want to remind you or let you know we have a brand new webinar that's coming up. It's on October the 10th, and it's about uh, dealing with the narcissists who want to take advantage of your good nature. Just know that we're going to be putting out some materials on that coming up very soon. We're going to have some details, so keep your eye to the ground or ear to the ground for that. Keep your eyes open, and then we're going to give you some details about a brand new webinar that's coming up on October 10th. So that's what. 5 weeks from yesterday. It's going to be on a Tuesday. So you'll get plenty of information, but just keep your eye out for that. Okay, I'm going to go straight into the questions here today. And each time I ask the question, I want you to think, is this a person being dense or is this somebody who's just playing me? Okay. And dense, when I say dense, they hardly even know what they're doing, but they just do it anyway out of habit. First question. This person asks, can you please address this burning question I have? Okay, here we are. I put you at the top of the list. Do narcissists knowingly plan out their lies, deceit, and manipulation to gain advantage over a victim? Are they unaware of what they do because they lack empathy and they don't know how this affects their victims? Do they know what they do and just don't care? So, in other words, what's going on? So, the question, do narcissists knowingly plan out their lies? Okay, I'm going to vote a really strong yes on that one. Yes, they knowingly plan out their lies. And so rather than saying they're just dense, they actually are. We'll get to that in a minute. They're players. They're phonies, and they want to create a certain kind of impression. And if there are certain things that you know about them, it's like that's not going to get me what I want. I want dominance. I want the advantage position. I want affirmation. And if you find out certain things about me, I might not get what I want. So truth can be expedient. I'm now we'll just pick some low lying fruit. Let's suppose somebody has sexual proclivities that are inappropriate. Let's suppose somebody has grossly mismanaged money. Let's suppose somebody is lazy and doesn't want to do a task, and so they hide out. Those are individuals who are going to very strongly take proactive measures to just point blank lie. Yeah, and they'll cover up, and it's like, oh, I know what I'm doing is not going to win any kind of favor points for me. So what you don't know won't hurt you. So they'll go into a very strong dishonest kind of mindset. So are narcissists inclined toward that? The answer is absolutely. You betcha. Just it's part of who they are. They can be highly devious. Now, having said that, there are times when narcissists can become so habituated to telling those lies that sometimes I find these individuals will tell a lie when truth would be just as easy. Or, I mean, and it can be something as simple as, talking about something that happened to them a long time ago that didn't really happen, but, just kind of makes them sound better. But then they get so caught up in their own self importance, they start listening to themselves and they actually start believing some of the garbage they sling out there toward you. And so there are times when they wind up, it's kind of like gaslighting themselves into thinking, well, if I say it, it's probably true. Well, I don't know. So they just kind of flow with whatever sounds good in the moment. And it's crazy how their relationship with dishonesty is so convoluted. Now, this person asked in the question, they asked something that to me indicates a type of insight or picking up on a nuance. It's this person says, are they unaware of what they do because they lack empathy? And the lack of empathy, that was a good thing for you to pick up on, is a big yes. You see, if I'm engaging with you, and if I'm thinking, well, how much do I say, and what do I divulge, or how far do I go into talking about details? Hopefully, if I am trying to be an appropriate individual, I'm thinking, well, what's the nature of my relationship with you, and who are you, and what do you have going on in your personal life? For example, let's suppose that I had an argument with somebody, but then this person in front of me has been abused really badly, and my argument with somebody is going to be very minimal with respect to where that person's coming from. I don't necessarily need to go into that, and so I don't need to talk about that. Now, there are other times when I need to share something personal. So there are times when empathy can be a very helpful ingredient to help you know when to go into a certain space versus when not to. That's not what's going on though with narcissists. They'll lie and they'll be devious, not because there's an empathetic element there, but they'll lie just because it's all about me. I don't want accountability. You're a nuisance, and it's just part of their gaslighting. And so there are times when discernment. Okay, that's a very different word. Discernment is necessary in the way that we engage with each other, and discernment can be grounded strongly in a real healthy form of empathy. Narcissists, though, whenever they're telling lies, it's not discernment. It's the self gratification. It's elevating themselves at your expense. Accountability, honesty, that stuff's overrated. No, thank you. So, um, here we start out with this first question. What's going on? They're players. Now, like I say, density comes into it. Let's go into another question, okay? See what you think about this one. This person says, Dr. C, can you discuss the fragile ego in terms of disagreement? And then this person goes on to say, my narcissist is threatened by the slightest difference between us and will start a war if I have a different opinion. He's insulted if I don't like the same things. And then in parentheses, movies, music, tastes, interests. And so the question is, what's going on with this fragile ego? Now, typically, when we have something like this, I mean, yes, there's a manipulation thing. That the implication is I have to have you think the same as me so that I can be okay. But I would see this more in the dense category. Narcissists, part of their denseness is they don't really have a good appreciation or awareness or insight with respect to how they've developed the way they have. Here, this person is extremely thin skinned. Whenever this individual says, well, I have a preference that's not the same as yours, or I have an interpretation, or my type of music is not quite the same as yours, or you want to go to this movie, I'd rather see that movie. I mean, simple things that we all have to come to terms with. That narcissist, like, you're rejecting me, aren't you? You're always against me, aren't you? Why do you have to make my life so difficult? Why are you always arguing? And you're over there thinking, I'm not doing any of that. I'm just simply being me. Is that not okay? Oh, so you think I'm stupid, huh? And so they can come back at you with this. This person says, use the term fragile ego. The way I put it is they can be pathologically defensive. And that's something that can start showing up very early in life. How many of you have been around, let's say, a little 5, 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old kid, and they did something or said something wrong or inappropriate? And how many times does that little child, that grade school kid, say, I didn't do that? Or they're thinking, I'm going to get in trouble, or, ooh, that wasn't a good idea. And so they can have this insecurity, and it can cause them to act out. It can cause them to cry, or to blame shift or something like that. And, we can say, well, if it's a 7-year-old kid, we can train them and teach them to do a little bit differently. But here you're thinking, well, but this person in front of me is 47 years old. They ought to know better by now. And there are some individuals who have not grown out of that grade school defensiveness. Kids, after a while, they begin realizing, okay, there are rules out there, there are enforcers out there, there are judgmental people out there, there are troublemakers, there are invalidating people. What am I going to do in my reaction? And they don't really know. They can be very frozen in the way that they engage. And so sometimes they can become argumentative, or go underground, or cry or something like that. But then you'd like to think that as they age, particularly as they get into their adolescence, and more of a sense of abstract thinking comes in, and values and principles and standards become more entrenched and well conceived, that they learn how to get beyond that. You have a lot of these narcissistic individuals are so stuck in what I refer to as their pre-adolescent thinking, that the implication is, um, when I'm with you, uh, I can't have anything other than what I want. Being you is not okay. You have to go along with me and just tell me that I'm all right. And so they are assuming that the world out there is against them. The world out there is going to clobber them. They're going to be invalidated, and it's full of wannabe judges. And so that's how they think, and they've never learned how to get out of that. That's part of the density. And when you say, hey, look, I'm not your enemy. I'm not the one who's out here trying to judge. In their dense mindset, it's like, doesn't feel like that to me. And so to them, it becomes their truth. And I think a lot of that fragile ego and that automatic, instantaneous defensiveness is, it's less of a planned playing of you. Although sometimes once they get into it, then they know they've got you going. But that's a good indicator that says this is a not insightful person at all, and that's the beginning point of the dense, the closed-minded kind of person. They don't even know where this comes from. All they know is you're acting in ways that I don't like. You have a preference that disagrees with me, and now I'm going to be mad. And much of that is them playing out some of their own personal unfinished business onto you. And it's so important for you to understand that, because they want you to become the problem, when in fact, no, the problem is they just have such a poor awareness of who they are, and how patterns in their life have been established that they've never learned how to disentangle from. So that kind of gives you an idea of what we're talking about. Now, this next one, and I'm going to guess that a lot of you already know the answer to this question, but let's see where we go with this one. This person says, why do you think that narcissists think that you will buy so easily into their lies? Okay. Okay, just think that one through. The narcissist lies to you a lot, and apparently that narcissist thinks, I think I can get away with this, and they're never going to know. Why do they do that? This person goes on to say, my father lies to me all the time, but I don't fall for it. Why does he think I'm so easy to fool? Now, yeah, let's see here. I don't have any answers on there yet on the live feed. How about this one? Okay, B, they don't care. Here's the way I look at it. Before I lie to you, who else have I been lying to? I've been lying to myself. The reason this father can lie to the child, and I'm going to assume this is an adult child, it's like, no, you got that wrong, or that's not what happened. That father has been lying to himself for decades. Okay. So let's suppose that you are frustrated with something and you talk to your father and say, hey, what you and I had going on didn't really work out for me. And the father can say, you got your facts all wrong. That's not the case. Here's what happens. And you know that they're either giving you half truths or they're coming up with some sort of lame excuse that's not very accurate. In other words, they're lying to you. Or they may just say, well, the reason you need to do this is because of this, that, and the other. And then you find out that this, that, and the other never was in the first place. Narcissists can't be honest with you because they can't be honest with themselves. And so that's part of their density. But then clearly, whenever a person openly tells a lie, it's also their way of thinking, I think I can get away with this. And so, to me, the person that is very willing to tell lies or distort truth, they're messing with you, they're playing with you, but it all originates from that sprout that's on the inside of them, where they learn honesty sometimes can get you in trouble. Honesty makes you sometimes have to admit things you don't want to have to admit. And so they learned how to play with truth a long time ago. My wife and I were just talking, I guess it was just last night, about that there's one person that we have in our world that it's like whenever you speak, it's like, well, how far can I take this? Is it accurate? Sometimes it is. This person can be very reliable, and other times it's like, well, I don't know what's going on because I found out last time when I thought we had an agreement, this it got completely undermined and spoken in a wrong kind of way. And there's some individuals. It's like, yeah, when you're dealing with that person, you're dealing with a game player because, and if you look into their background, inevitably they learned truth, it's not my friend. My version of what I want to be truth, that's my friend. And so, like I say, they're constantly posturing. They're trying to come up with an angle, and then if they have to tell lies, or if they have to omit things, or distort something, or put something back on you that doesn't belong to you, they're more than willing to do so. And ultimately, they're players. So you can see just through these first questions that I'm asking, narcissists, yes, they definitely know what they're doing, but also we can say narcissists are so deeply habituated, they're so deeply entrenched that we can almost say that this becomes subconscious. And that's the dense part. It's like the lack of insight and the lack of wisdom and discernment that would keep the healthy individual from going into their dysfunctional space. It's just astonishing, and it's deeply embedded in what they are. Okay. But typically, why does he lie to you? It's because he's lied to himself so much before. Now, this next one, and my heart goes out to this because I think that most of us would have a very similar reaction. And the fact that this person is asking the question says that she's really struggling still. This person says, Dr. C, what would you advise we should do when a narcissist goes into a devaluation, tirade, or rage? All right, let's just pause right there. You know, I was in my therapy practice for 41 years, which means I'm old. Uh, some of you don't know, but I'm going to hit 70 next year. But at least I'm hanging around. Throughout all the years that I was in therapy, Um, I did a lot of anger management work, and I would just never get used to the stories that I would hear about people in this person's terminology. This she says it goes into a devaluation, tirade, or a rage. And there's some individuals, and this has to be strongly narcissistic, who think, okay, the best way for me to get what I want is not just to insult you, but to go into a strong, overpowering, dominating, authoritarian attitude toward you, and I will make you regret ever coming against me. That's how some of them think. And then this person goes on to say, should you quietly accept it? And would you cut off further contact or maintain a courteous, superficial relationship? In other words, this individual saying, I'm frozen. I don't know what to do. And I know that many of you have been in that situation where it's like, well, if I say something, it's going to be no good. If I say nothing, it's going to be no good. If I argue back, it's never going to come out really well. What am I supposed to do? If I leave, they can follow me, or they can send their minions after me. And to me, that's just such a it's such a well, it just brings you down, and a deflating kind of thing to have to come to terms with. Now, when you're talking about this kind of rage, this isn't just being dense. Yes, it is, but you're being played. The dense part is inside the mind of a narcissist. Somehow, that person has convinced himself, okay, if I scream louder, if I curse more, if I call you names more, if I invalidate you strongly enough, and I intimidate and threaten you, that's a good strategy. That means I am going to have control over you, and I am now a somebody. Really? Seriously? That's dense. Nowhere in healthy living can we say that intimidating somebody is a great strategy for life. I mean, when you have to bully someone into submission and deference, exactly what do you have now? You know that there are plenty of people who think, oh no, contrary, that means I win. And we have governmental systems that think this way. We have religious systems, we have organizations, we have family systems, we have individuals. I mean, across the board, no matter where you are, these individuals can think being a bully works. And so that's what a lot of people do. And so that's their denseness in the fact that they have rationalized that this really is good. But ultimately, these are players. What they're doing is they're thinking, I've got to have supply. I have to have people who remind me how excellent I am. Oh, I know. What I'll do is I'll be so overwhelming, I'll be so overbearing that they're going to just have to acquiesce. And so they're playing you, and they're hoping that they are going to get the acquiescence and the deference that their intimidating kind of thing is. And so this person says, should I quietly accept it? Well, in a certain way, there's a yes answer to that. You've heard me refer to the term radical acceptance. And when we talk about having radical acceptance, we talk about looking at some of the ugly truth that's right there in front of you. And so many times we go into what I refer to as mythical thinking. Listen for terms like "if only you would," or "I wish that," or "why can't you?" And we just have this dream-like mythology that says, "Surely you're not going to be this way forever, are you?" When in fact, yes, they are. And so radical acceptance means I accept the fact that that's who you are. And no matter what I say or do, no matter who else comes along and tries to get you to be a better person, you're just committed to this. I get it, I accept it, and I'm going to quit banging my head against the brick wall that you represent. Now, having said that, it doesn't mean that you just stay there and take it. Because when somebody is raging against you, and then that's the word that she used, or a devaluation tirade, it's like, I hope that you have enough self respect that says, this person doesn't hold me in high regard. I do hold myself in high regard. And if I'm someone that creates this kind of, actually you don't create it, it's already in it. But if I bring out this kind of disdain from that other individual, I'm doing that person no favors. I'm doing myself no favors by remaining. I need to move on. And as you may have to just completely remove yourself. I understand that there are times when you can't do that because of extraneous circumstances, but you can deeply minimize your contact with someone like that. But I'm hoping that there's a note that says, I don't really need people like that in my life. And as much as I possibly can, with as much plausibility, I'm going to remove that kind of person because I don't deserve it. And healthy living requires a whole lot of other things than the devaluation, tirade, and rage. You are being played by a dense person that's rationalized to themselves, but the bottom line is you're being dismissed, you're being gaslit. That's what this is all about. Uh, Please take care of yourself. You hear me say that plenty. One size doesn't fit all. Not everybody can move away, but the bottom line is I'm hoping you can move on. Okay. All right. This person says, what do you call a person that admits anger issues, but either claims it's the other person's fault or that the other person is their only cure? Okay. What do you call that person? Well, smart aleck in me says, well, Bob, Jim, I don't know. What's their name? What do you call them? Okay. Let's move on with that, though. When somebody says, it's that other person's fault. Yes, I have an anger issue, but it's that person's fault. Or uh, this would never have happened had that person done the right thing in the first place. There is a word for that, and it's called phony. Okay. Uh, when we talk about phony, we're talking about a person that is bought into disguises and rationalizations and justifications that just simply don't measure up. But they try to act as if they do, and they try to pretend like they're somebody that they're not. This person's playing a victim's card, plain and simple. Yeah, I had an anger problem, and then they'll do that reversal, but it never would have happened had that other individual over there just been a more appropriate person in the first place. That's victim shaming, by the way. I victimized you and then I shame you for feeling really crummy about what I just did. You are being played when that happens, plain and simple. That person is just simply trying to bully you into compliance, and as a result, it's like, I'm onto it. I see what you're doing, and basically, when a person says, "I have an anger issue," but okay, that word "but" means erase what I just said. Here comes what I really mean. What they're saying is, I don't want to have to take responsibility for my anger, and so that's the real truth. And so let's keep in mind that it's not your job to provide the cure for that person's dysregulated emotions. This person says, well, that other person is the cure in the sense that if they had done something better, then my anger would just dissipate and go away. No, it wouldn't. Something else would come along and prompt it. You're not the issue. You're not responsible. You're being messed with. It's gaslighting. That person is saying, I learned a long time ago that I'd rather sidestep responsibility. And so that word "but" is going to be used over and over. You are being played if, in fact, that's the case of what you're dealing with. The next question goes right along with this. This person asked, do you know if a feeling of confusion is part of the effects from narcissistic abuse? And the answer is yes, yes, yes. That's one of the greatest things that a narcissist tries to accomplish. Just pause on that. I want you to feel confused. That's a good goal. So they think. And so is a feeling of confusion part of the effects from narcissistic abuse? They notice how many times they come at you with all sorts of accusations, invalidations. You're stupid. You're difficult. You're impossible. If anybody else had to deal with you like I do, it would be a whole lot worse. I mean, all of this abuse and insults and negativity. What they're wanting is they want you to disbelieve who you are. One of my ways of describing a goal of the narcissist is they want to empty you of yourself. and then they want to fill you with themselves. And so the implication is I have to convince you that whatever you carry around on the inside of yourself is not valid. And so when you say, well, I just want to have a pleasant evening at home where I can read a book. And the narcissist said, yeah, you're always selfish. You just hibernate and you don't care about anybody but you. And over time, if you hear stuff like that, it's like, well, maybe it is true. Maybe I am being selfish. Maybe I have to do what that person tells me. And then we can take it on a much larger kind of scale. But yes, confusion, which is what gaslighting is all about, is part of their game. And the more you see that, then the more I'm hoping you can pull back and ask, well, wait a minute. That's what that controlling, overbearing, insulting, judgmental narcissist wants me to think. What do I think? And I did a video probably 2 or 3 years ago now about your ultimate superpower when you're dealing with a narcissist. If you haven't seen it, go back and see if you can find it. Do it in the search that we have in the channel. But your ultimate superpower is trusting yourself. Do you trust yourself? And when the narcissist gets to the point where you think, I don't know if I can trust myself, everything I do is second guess, then they've won. And you can't afford to let that happen. Are you a decent person? Are you somebody that tries to use discernment and good principles and values and standards? Trust yourself. Okay. Okay. Now I've got a couple of questions here about narcissists and counseling, and this goes into density versus being played. And this is with respect to the narcissist relationship with a therapist. Um, Okay, the first question we have here, if a covert narcissist enters counseling, meaning that one has hit rock bottom, but still will not admit that they're the problem and continues to blame everyone else for their downfall, will the psychiatrist pick up on that quickly? I guess my question is, will the psychiatrist be fooled? By the way, let me take a little bit of an aside. We often think of the psychiatrist as being the Cadillac version of therapist, and this is in no way anything negative or disparaging about a psychiatrist. Psychiatrists in today's nomenclature are the ones who they have a medical doctor's degree, and they look more into the physical dimension with respect, as a general rule, to a person's pathology. And in medical school, they may have, let's say, 3 classes that have to do with therapy, et cetera. And there are plenty of really good psychiatrists out there. Psychotherapists like myself, psychotherapists can have like 30 different classes in therapy and all like that. And so you're dealing with a different kind between a psychiatrist and a psychotherapist, and also just know a little bit of a difference. Now, having said that, can the psychiatrist or the therapist be fooled? And the answer is, oh, yeah, it can happen. It's possible. Sometimes the psychiatrist, it may have been that the last session they had was such a doozy that they've got something going on in their mind and they don't pick up on things. It may be that they have a fixation, particularly if it's somebody that's looking for medical angles, and it's like they just zero in on that and they don't necessarily pick up on it. I think more and more, though, people in our profession are figuring things out in a broader kind of way. Being really honest, I was in graduate school back in the late 1970s. I finished my doctorate in 1980. And we didn't talk about narcissism a whole lot. We didn't talk about autism a lot either. Those were things that we mentioned and that were known, but we didn't go into that space in some of the ways that we do now. We didn't talk about ADD as much either. There are just some things in the last 40 plus years that we've become more and more familiar with. But the bottom line is, can a narcissist come in and fool them? The answer is yes. They'll say, I've hit rock bottom, and then they want to try to blame everyone else. And this takes us into the second question about therapy. This person says, Dr. C, could you go into more detail about what you would look for when a person came into your office and you suspected narcissism? Okay. That would be really interesting to hear and help us see the red flags early. Sure enough, there are times when strongly narcissistic people get caught. Uh, Again, an easy lying issue or illustration of this is, let's say they've had an extramarital affair, and there's not a whole lot of ways that you can pretty it up and say, well, it was really a whole lot better than what you think. Well, no, it wasn't. Or you have somebody that got caught in all sorts of lies, or I've had people there would be times when I would have somebody out in my waiting room and they'd have a cast on their arm because they, ran their arm through the wall and they broke their ulna or something like that. I mean, there are all sorts of possibilities where it's like, okay, you need to go in and get counseling. So there they are in my office. They've been caught red-handed. Something has gone so dreadfully wrong that they can't deny it. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, and I don't mean this in a insensitive light, but good. I'm glad you're here. I'm not glad for the circumstances that brought you here, but I'm glad you're here, because if ever anybody is going to get through to somebody who has that bent, it's in the moments of crisis that you're going to be able to make some inroads. You've got their attention. Now, many times narcissists can have, and this goes to that dense or being played, uh, they can have enough self awareness to think something really has been going on in my life for a long time that has not served me well, whether it's my anger or it's my dishonesty or it's my willingness to use people or my inability to manage conflict. And I need to get a handle on that. And so they come in knowing that. Okay. I mean, because it's kind of hard to argue against some of the hard facts in front of them. When people ask, well, how would you know that you're dealing with a narcissistic individual? First, it does take some time. That first person says, can a psychiatrist be fooled? The answer is yes. Um, I operate with the assumption that every one of us has some proclivity towards the ingredients that are a part of narcissism. We all sometimes come across too controlling. We all, each of us can sometimes have moments where we need to show empathy and we just miss it altogether. Or sometimes we can have an attitude of entitlement, or we can be selfish, or we can sometimes play games with individuals. And every one of us needs to be honest about our proclivities. Healthy individuals will say, you know what? That's something I am capable of doing, and I'm going to stay on top of it. And so those individuals make themselves accountable. They have all sorts of make all sorts of efforts toward self improvement. You notice I mentioned a few moments ago I have a webinar coming along. We have the videos. We have these kind of things that the Q&A times. We have their books out there. There are lots of resources where people can learn. And so healthy individuals say, I want to learn, I want to grow, and they keep whatever their potential is toward narcissism at a very minimal low, to where if it does show up, they can clamp down on it pretty quickly. The narcissist, over time, they'll start coming back. It's like, well, okay, it was 2 months ago, it was 5 months ago, it was 3 years ago. Coast is clear. I don't think people are bringing up the subject as much. And eventually, yeah, there's the old proverb about the dog returning to its vomit. Eventually, narcissists will start going back. And there's one really large thing that I would watch for that would tell me what I'm dealing with, and that is when narcissists would try to go back and gain an understanding of why they are what they are. um, they can always find somebody back there who didn't treat them well. And the narcissist will park on that. For example, let's suppose you do have that guy that has a cast on his arm because he ran his fist through the window or something like that. And then that person can be in my office saying, "Yeah, my old man, golly, he was mean and he was harsh and he never had anything good, and so he would just scream at me. That's why I do what I do." And frankly, there's some truth to that. Okay. Or it could be that a person can say, well, I had that extramarital affair because I had such a lack of love in my deep history, and the relationship I was in just wasn't working. Okay. That can have something to do with it. But the narcissist is like, okay, that's enough. As opposed to saying, but you know what? Other people have had that very angry father, or other people have had that less than wonderful relationship, and they did not go into the same space that I did. So the bottom line is, I still have to take responsibility for myself. And narcissists, particularly as time goes by, they'll go into what seems to be insightful reasoning, But then there's always that, yeah, if that had not happened, then I'd probably be okay. And that's when I, as a therapist, would know I'm being played. One of the things that I actually liked and would give me a positive signal is when that individual who has had some narcissistic tendencies comes to my office, and then they make themselves available to support groups or classes or things like that. That's part of an ongoing thing. In other words, they're not going to look at going to therapists as a check off the box. Okay, I did that for 3 months now. I'm done. I'm cured. But when people make it part of their ongoing self confrontation, that's when I'm more impressed. But basically, they look for excuses, and even as they seemingly talk insight, ultimately it's an excuse. Well, my mother was difficult, or I had a bad first marriage, or I had dyslexia or something like that, and then that's why I do the things that I do now. And then they don't go any further. It's like, okay, the more you do that, the more I know I'm being played. I want to know first that you'll claim ultimate responsibility. Second, you'll make yourself accountable. And then 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years down the road, you're still working on it. That's when we know, okay, you're going somewhere. High percentage of them don't do that. Some do, high percentage don't. Okay. Okay. Looking at our time here. This person says, Dr. Carter, can you talk about how a narcissist makes you feel that you're their best friend in private, but then immediately and consistently they ditch you when they're in public with you? Would that be considered breadcrumbing? And the answer is no, that's not breadcrumbing. I'll get to that in just a moment. You're being played, plain and simple. So one on one, hey, old buddy, old pal, and often there can be some sort of huge gain that they're looking for one on one, whether it's they're looking for sexual favors, or they're looking for you to help them out with projects, or they're looking for you to listen to them crying in their beer, or whatever it might be. It's like, oh, you and me, we're tight. But then out in public, it's like I'm over here talking to everybody else, or I don't really want everybody to know that you and I are an item over here. All that says is they're just looking for supply. They're looking for someone that says you're the best. And it also says to you, you're replaceable. And when I do find a replacement, I'm going to go over there. Sayonara, see you later. But that's not breadcrumbing. Breadcrumbing means that when you've done something and or the narcissist has done something and they know that they're out of favor with you, then what they'll do is they'll start doing favors for you. And for example, let's suppose you caught that narcissist in a major lie and it really was ruinous. They may bring you a gift, or they may take you to dinner. They may say all sorts of nice things and sit down and try to have good conversations just to try to get you back in favor. But a month later, 6 months later, they're back to the same old, same old. That's breadcrumbing. But bottom line is, you are indeed being played. If I have a close relationship with you in private, then I'm more than happy to have a close relationship with you in public too. And so when they won't do that, it's like, no, you're just, I use people for window dressing. And right now, you're not looking all that pretty when I'm out there in public. We'll get back to it when it's just you and me and nobody else is looking. They're messing with you, plain and simple. They're looking for a better deal out there. Okay, one last question. Um, okay, this one's just straightforward. Everything is unfair to the narcissist. So, how can the victim ever be treated fairly? So, this person is saying, well, I'm looking for the narcissist to treat me fairly, but then that narcissist is constantly complaining that nobody's fair to them. And so you're picking up on the fact, in other words, the narcissist complains constantly. Am I being played, or is this person just dense? And the answer is, oh, you're being played, plain and simple. You're not going to be treated fairly when the narcissist, all they see is unfairness in front of them. And so just know that if you're in the presence of someone who is constantly griping and moaning and groaning and saying, life gave me a dirty deal, then when you come along, it's like, you know what? You're going to be the next person I'm going to be talking about when I have some other friends down the road, because that's just how I see it. And so when they don't get their way, it's like, yeah, I got cheated once again. And that's their denseness in the fact that they honestly believe that they're supposed to have entitled treatment, and then they're playing you in the sense that they just refuse to take responsibility for who they are. Okay, so in fact, I just wrote some notes this morning, and I'll be doing a video. I tend to stay 2-3 weeks out ahead of myself in the videos, but it's about all the hidden messages that narcissists bring to the equation, the disguised messages, and we're kind of talking about that here today. What you see up front isn't necessarily what they really are behind the scenes, and I think the more that you can understand, just because they say something or do something doesn't mean that that's accurate. They're players, they're users, they're manipulators. Factor that in, unfortunately. And then I go back to that phrase, trust yourself. Whenever you're in the presence of someone and you feel like this just doesn't pass the smell test, or I don't like the way I'm being treated, or I'm being held to a different standard than everybody else out there, you need to ask yourself, what does that say to me? And how will my self care inform the way that I'm going to move forward from here? Team Healthy, I so appreciate you sending your questions. So again, I'm going to invite you, please send your questions, put them in the comment section below, and I'll pick up on them. Know that I thoroughly enjoy this format because it allows me to know where you're coming from. I hope that you have a good week ahead of you. We're still sweltering here in Texas, believe it or not, with our super high temperatures. I think we're supposed to have a break here, but anyway, wherever you are, I hope it's delightful for you. I'll see you next time. I look forward to hearing what's on your mind. And I hope you have a good week coming up. Peace to you. Know that I appreciate who you are.